Here's the craziness of addiction. I hear people, oh, Tommy just overdosed. I'm now going to his supplier because I want that drug because it's more potent than what I was taking. So that chase for that next better high and that better potency is what fuels this addiction on the streets. And it's the insanity, the cunning, baffling, powerful of the addiction. I realized in my active addiction, nobody was coming to save me. Nobody was coming in to kick in the door. Nobody was coming in to educate me. Nobody was helping me. I alienated everybody in my life because of my addiction, right? I didn't want them to see me suffering. I didn't want them to suffer through the addiction. So it was easier for me just to say, hey, don't come by. I don't need a relationship. Never had fentanyl. Dude, I went in active addiction for 10 years with opiates. Fentanyl is nothing like it. It's an opiate, but the potency of what they're getting now is taking people and changing them exponentially.
Welcome to the Why Intervention Podcast. I am your host, Christopher Doyle, today joined by Brock Bevel. Brock has 15 years of diverse professional experience, a unique blend of expertise across lots of different fields. Similar to myself, I was a former firefighter. Brock is a former police officer and detective. He's retired now. He's the owner and director of the Fentanyl Project out in Arizona. It's a very impactful public awareness campaign. He's saving lives. He's on the front lines. And I just really wanted to have Brock come on to discuss his experience with what's going on, what he's seeing, very boots on the ground, if I can say so. And from what I've seen, and also just what has happened most recently, like I've had a lot of guests and everybody is talking about the concern about the experimentation of young kids anymore, right? Like where we can't even afford it. And so what I wanted to do was to just have you come on to speak to that a little bit because of your experience and what you're seeing, to have somebody with practical, without being sensational, without being over the top. It's just, here's the reality. And with what you're doing, you can be able to explain this to parents and to families that are listening more than probably anyone that I know because of just what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that's the intro, that's the background, and that's what we're going to touch on, and then we'll talk about whatever else we're going to do. So Brock, it's good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a while. It's really great to have you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the nod. I appreciate the opportunity because the more we can talk about it, the healthier we become. And I appreciate the fact that you want people that are on the streets and that you want to talk about this concern where these kids are these one-time users. I don't know if you know the facts, but in Arizona, where are you at? California?
No, I'm originally New York, and now
okay.
My home base is Pennsylvania, but East Coast, yeah.
East Coast. So West Coast, Arizona, we're getting our asses handed to us. We have about 5 Arizonans die a day from overdose. We are... I can get to the border in an hour and 20 minutes. I could be at the Mexican border. Do you know anything about this crisis that's coming into America? It is now exponentially grown into them putting fentanyl in every single drug we're using, every single street drug that's out there. So, Chris, when we were little kids, and most of your viewers, when they were kids, man, we'd smoke a joint and we wouldn't even be worried about dying. You never heard of people dying from overdose when we were growing up. I mean, we heard maybe the alcoholic die from liver failure or something like that, but man, overdose wasn't a concern.
Right.
Today, 66% of Americans that are dying of overdose are dying in their own homes.
Yeah.
So the concern, and the reason I tell you that stat is, why is it happening? It's these youth who are being targeted 18 to 45. They're going out and they're experimenting. They're going to a party and they're trying Molly for the first time. They're trying cocaine. They're trying, whatever drugs out there, right? And then they feel ill. They feel, oh man, I got a stomach ache, whatever. They go home. They don't know that it was trace amount of fentanyl and they overdose. So they're being duped, man. They're being killed because of not knowing that there's fentanyl in their product.
Yeah.
And so that right there is alarming.
Right. So let's make the distinction, as I know some people, especially recovery advocates, do, right? Where we're in a scenario like that, let's just make the distinction when we say that substance that they were taking was tainted, where they did not know that fentanyl was contained in what it was that they were doing. And so that's what we're speaking to here when we're saying the experimentation factor, that if you have a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old who, when we were kids, the experimenting is kind of a normal phase of life. You're experimenting across all different categories of life, and taking substances and being risky is one of those categories. And unfortunately, because of that tainting of substances, it really puts experimenting with anything that you don't know what the source is, like at high risk, which puts, parents in the crosshairs of really having to get good at having conversations around this a lot sooner than they probably were thinking.
A lot. And so let me give you an example. You're a first responder. Because I'm a police officer, I still have a lot of contacts throughout the nation. There was an agency in Ohio that did a traffic stop on a vehicle. And when they did the stop, they noticed that there were these pressed they just found a baggie of Tylenol pills. You open them up, they were the white, they had the T on one side, on the other side, they had the red Tylenol in script, right? They're like, this is really odd. Why would these guys be transporting? Why would they be hiding this? Okay, if they're just Tylenol pills. So they took it to a lab, tested it, and it came back with fentanyl in these pills. Mm-hmm. So when you do an observation, you put them next to a pill, you could tell that these things were fabricated in an off-site lab. They're not pharmaceutical grade pills, right? But they look like it.
Yeah.
They look like it. And they're made to mimic the original. So like here in Arizona, we have M30s floating everywhere. Supposed to look like an M30 pill.
And what is that? Right? What is that for?
An oxy. Yeah, an M30 is like an oxy. So if you go to the doctor, you're going to get these and it has a stamp on it and there's a 30 stamped on it. And so they're blue. They have the line on it. They have one side an M, on the other side there's a 30. So they're made to to mimic the real pill.
Right. So if someone thinks about it, they go, okay, this is a prescription. My friend tells me that he got this from his grandmother's medicine cabinet, but he didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what's happening is they're using those fake pills, and they're not even fake. They're real pills made to look fake, right? They are fentanyl pressed pills. Yeah. We know what they are, but these youngsters, they don't know what they're getting into, and so they're using it and dying.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'd be like, I'm always, I'm very reticent I don't want to over sensationalize or kind of like make anything seem more, serious than it actually is, right? The last thing in the world that I'm going to do is be talking to parents on the phone or something and say like, your kid's going to die or something like that. That's the absolute worst. Like I would never go that kind of route. So I guess I'm trying to get a handle on how it is that we're going to like broach this, because the conversation does feel like it's different than what it used to be. Like when I was growing up and people, I grew up in the 80s, it's the crack epidemic, especially on the East Coast, right? And it's like, this is your brain on drugs, all those types of things that now that I'm an adult, we grew out of, we survived, and it didn't have the same kind of vibe looking back. Even the opiate epidemic coming into 2003, 2004, 2005, like just looking back at that and how crazy things were and how we started having an increase in overdose deaths, but still it was pharmaceutical grade product. Now it does feel like we've crossed a line into something that is different, that is going to require like just a different approach. Like basically I'm trying to thread the needle between being alarmist and also at the same time keeping it real. And that's why, again, I wanted to lean on you because you're in the street.
Yeah. And I'm the same way, Chris. I don't, man, but if I could grab every freaking parent and talk to them, I would, right? And because here's the concern. we never had fentanyl. Dude, I went in active addiction for 10 years with opiates. Fentanyl is nothing like it. It's an opiate, but the potency of what they're getting now is taking people and changing them exponentially. For example, Chris, if you go watch some of my videos, I contacted a nurse from back east. She was an ER nurse. She was moving a body and she hurt her back. So they put her on oxys. Okay. She couldn't come back to work. So they did surgery on her. The injury was too severe, couldn't come back. So they retired. They basically said, okay, here's a settlement. Within 2 weeks of cutting her off, she was full blown fentanyl user. And that's the crazy thing of what we're dealing with is we're not comparing oranges and oranges. We're comparing oranges to grenades, if that makes any sense. Because when I was in full-blown addiction, I was taking an M30 or an M80 or whatever. They were prescribed, they were prescription. It was the same thing every time. Today, you do not know what you're getting in each from pill to pill. And that's why we call it, I don't know if you've ever heard of the chocolate chip cookie effect. And this is where it becomes a little more alarming. These pills are not being pressed in a pharmacy. They're not these experts that are doing this.
Yeah.
Right? They are being made in labs. And so what happens is the chocolate chip cookie effect looks like this. They have the pill press, they throw the drugs, they throw the fentanyl in the press. And then when this press starts hitting 50,000 pills in an hour, when the fentanyl is dropping in to make the pill, you may have one pill that has 1 gram in it. You may have one pill that has 10 grams of fentanyl in it. You don't know. So each pill is different. They're not perfectly made. And so you may get a hot pill. And people are like, well, how are these guys taking 100 pills a day? Because they're using 100 pills a day, right? Their body is getting used to the amount of fentanyl that is in it. And so, but what's crazy is this. I've seen people that have used 100 pills a day in active addiction. The next day they're dead from one pill because they got that hot pill. So even with their tolerance being 100 pills a day, they take one hot pill, they're dead.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to be an alarmist either, but the reality is 107,000 Americans died last year from overdose. That tells me right there, it's taking communities.
What was your inspiration and your motivation for starting the Fentanyl Project and wanting to get out there?
Dude, I realized in my active addiction, nobody was coming to save me. Nobody was coming in to kick in the door. Nobody was coming in to educate me. Nobody was helping me. I alienated everybody in my life because of my addiction, right? I didn't want them to see me suffering. I didn't want them to suffer through the addiction. So it was easier for me just to say, hey, don't come by. I don't need a relationship. And so when I realized that and I started driving, I was working in a playground company. Okay. So I was going to all these parks on a daily basis. And I started realizing these people every single day are in these parks. So I started having conversations with them. I'm like, I'm there. I might as well talk to them, see how they're doing. And when I started talking to them, I found out that there's this new drug in town, this fentanyl, and that it's taking over their lives, that they can't even the concern was I can stop using, but then I'm going to go through 7 days of withdrawal. I'm going to go through the worst pain of my life. And that took me, Chris, back to my withdrawal, my 7 days of hell. And the reason I don't use today, dude, is I don't want to go back. I never want to experience that withdrawal again. So it was so memorable, so painful that I'm like, damn, dude, I get what you're saying is if I just stay high, I don't ever have to go through a withdrawal. So that was my thing. I'm like, dude, if I could just get people through that 7 days, if I can get them help, then maybe there's a way through this. But it's brutal, dude. It's brutal.
Yeah. Brutal how?
It's brutal in the fact that it's addiction for a lot of us is super physical. So at first my addiction was physical, right? I was ran over. I had immense pain. I had surgery after surgery. The prescriptions, the pills helped with my physical pain.
When you say ran over, you mean like physically got hit by a car?
Yeah, when I was a police officer, I got hit by a car, run over, multiple surgeries on my ankle, I had one on my foot, and then multiple on my, trying to get me back to work, right?
Right.
So that was all physical. Dude, what we don't talk about is the mental shit that we go through in active addiction, dude. The mental pain, the masking of it, the trauma, the shame, the guilt. Man, that's why most people stay in use for so long, is they're masking that pain, man. The original illness, the original pain, it's gone, bro. But now you're dealing and coping with all this stuff that's coming down the line.
Yeah. And it continues to compound because you're doing this thing that's creating more pain, more suffering, more consequences, more hurt for the people around you that care about you. And then those things compound in a sense of, and now I can't deal with those feelings. And the only thing I know to do is to chase it away using this thing that I'm addicted to. It's a real vicious cycle. A friend of mine was in treatment recently following a relapse. And he was saying how, when it's similar to your story, right? Like, he was addicted to opiates and they were, prescription pills when he first started. And I don't think that he ever, back in the day, say 10, 15 years ago, I don't think that heroin came into his story. Then he was on this relapse. He thought that he was using heroin the whole time. And, so he got into detox, he was in rehab, and he's talking to people and, people that are there who are, very much in the know and who were, really in active addiction for that whole, period of time. They're just like, there is no heroin, which is wild, right? That they're looking at him like he's crazy. It's like, you thought you were doing heroin. There's no heroin. There is no heroin. Heroin is not out of the supply. It is all fentanyl now. And so if this is anybody's first experience in hearing about fentanyl or something, which I doubt, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are pretty aware of things, but it's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, right? Fentanyl. And what you said, as far as that, that cookie effect, right? Like, there's a story of, say, two girls at a party who are splitting one pill. So you take half, I take half. And they think it's something else, number one. They're taking what they think is Molly. They split it. One girl takes half, she lives. One girl takes half, she dies. Because her half happened to have more fentanyl in it. Neither one of them knew fentanyl was inside. That's the kind of stuff where that's just a legitimate fact-based story, and how parents are going to have to navigate this is to just have very honest, open conversations with their children about not taking anything that is not, there are reports that it's, that marijuana is being laced with it, right? So,
That's a true story.
You're going to really have to focus on that. And of course, that's where my heart is at. It's always thinking about the families, and that's who we're speaking to here. So any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I love that. I love the thought of this, because the infiltration of the fentanyl and all the drugs we're seeing here in Arizona. So G is methamphetamines. G is just a slang term for meth, right? And we're seeing the meth users, which is, if you know anything about the makeup of drugs, meth is an upper and fentanyl is a downer, right? It helps you relax. It helps you sleep. It's used as a sedating agency in pharmaceutical grade. That's what it's for. Like, you go get surgery, they're going to give you fentanyl to go that sleep.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, right now it's crazy because we have all these people in Arizona that are thinking, hey, dude, I'm on G. I don't mess with that stuff. I don't touch fentanyl, man. And I'm like, okay, when did your G change? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, when did you get tired after using G? And they're like, dude, I totally noticed that, man. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I got bunk weed. I got, no, dude, you have freaking fentanyl in your G. So imagine thinking that you're going to go up. And so your heart is going up and down because you're taking an upper and a downer at the same time. And basically you're speedballing. Same way John Belushi, same way Chris Farley died, right? Is when you take an upper and a downer at the same time, speedballing. And so you have all these people in Arizona are like, dude, I just use meth, man. I'm just use Xanax or ecstasy or benzo. Dude, if you buy anything on the street. And the reason I'm telling you this, Chris, is because we actually have the ability to test the drugs. And people are like, hey, Bev, dude, can you test this G for me? I want to know because I've been getting tired. I'm going through withdrawals. And even before, they're like, okay, of course you're on it, but let's test it. So we test it and it comes back for fentanyl. They're like, wait, dude, I'm not a downer person. I'm not supposed to be taking this stuff. I'm self-medicating because I have ADHD or whatever you tell yourself, right?
Right.
But they're being duped. And so now they have to go through the process of the withdrawal from G, which is, if you think about the drug trade, is insanity because it shouldn't make you feel that.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't even have to worry about that, right? I mean, but why? So the question lies, why? Why are the cartels, why are they doing this to the supply? And why are you, and this is a question I get asked every day, why are they killing their customers? Now, let's drop back into addiction. We say it's what? Cunning?
Baffling?
Powerful. And powerful, right? And so if you think about that, when people are going through active addiction and their chase for the dope is at a 10. Like, if I can just get high, man, if I can get high, I'm going to be okay. And now all of a sudden the cartels understand that. And the greatest high that you will ever have is when you're on fentanyl. It puts you in this calm. It puts you in this, you're warm, like you got a warm blanket going around you, man. And as long as you have that, nothing in the world matters.
Yeah.
And so if the cartels understand this, and the people that are dealing this understand that, they're willing to drop it in and spray it on to your drugs because it makes it more potent and the chase to come back. And so why do I kill my customers? They're not trying to kill their customers, but they're trying to make the potency so strong. And here's the craziness of addiction. I hear people, oh, Tommy just overdosed. I'm now going to his supplier because I want that drug because it's more potent than what I was taking. So that chase for that next better high and that better potency is what fuels this addiction on the streets. And it's the insanity, the cunning, baffling, powerful of the addiction.
So for any families listening, why don't you explain what it is that you're actually doing, right? So they hear you saying that you're out there, you're testing strips. They're like, people are coming to you, like, test this stuff. So what are you actually doing on the ground?
Yeah, so I run a project called the Fentanyl Project Arizona, where I have a van. And in this van, I have supplies. I give out Narcan. I have fentanyl test strips. I have xylazine test strips, which we haven't even talked about.
Right.
I have these test strips for where people can come to me. I mean, it's not something I do on a daily basis, but I give them test strips. I'm always giving it out. So if you want to test your own dope, you can test it. There have been times where we get new drug kits in, and so we'll test their supply to see. But that's what we're doing. Our goal, I don't want to call it harm reduction because I really don't love the idea or the concept of harm reduction in its entirely, at least the way they put it in Arizona. Like, we don't give out syringes. We don't give out clean needles. I don't feel anything that's going to promote your addiction, but I am going to give you something that will keep you alive. And so that's the difference between our project and a lot of other ones in Arizona is we're boots on the ground every single day, communicating with people, talking to them face to face. What are you going through? What are you seeing? What are the new trends? What's happening? What's it doing to your body? Show me. Well, then we record it and we put it online and we show people, hey, this is, unfortunately, with some of the platforms, we can't even post a lot of the pictures and a lot of the comments because it's just so graphic, man.
Right. It's visceral.
So yeah,
it's visceral. It's emotional. It's very difficult to. I can't imagine any parents. The only parents that I've worked with that would be able to even look at your page are parents who have their kids in recovery and they're sober and they've been sober for a year or two or three, and then they're going to be able to look at them and they're going to find a lot of compassion and empathy. For the parents that have their kids out there, it would probably just be, I can feel it in my gut right now, just thinking about it. Within seconds, I'd be looking at it and I'd just be, probably a basket of tears thinking about where my kid is.
Yeah, let me say this one thing about that, Chris. The reason we post the videos is crazy enough. Families are looking for their loved ones. And I cannot tell you how many times I get a message a week saying, hey, that was my son, that was my daughter. Thank you for posting that video. I didn't even know they were still alive. But now that I see it, I see they've got some hope in their voice or whatever. So that's why we do it. We want to post that. We want to show people and educate, like, hey, dude, be careful because this shit's real.
Yeah. So some of the stories that you've heard, is there any particular angle or focus that you would like to share about themes that you might feel is instructive for any of our families that are listening?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. The instruction that I give to families is when we don't wake up wanting to be addicts, okay? And I always talk about there's 4 dimensions of every single person I talk to on the streets. There's 4 areas that they're struggling with. It could be 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4, but they're struggling with it. And it's real simple. I play a little baseball with them. Home plate, first base, second base, third base. Home plate is your home. How's your home? Is it a place of refuge? Is it a place that I can heal? Or is it a place where people are co-signing my use? Do I use it home? Is it safe? Right? So I dissect people's home life. Most of the people that I deal with are homeless. So they already got 1 strike against them. Second one is your health. And I'm talking mental, physical, spiritual health. People that are using usually struggle with spirituality, whatever that is, the universe, it can be whatever, but they struggle with connecting to where there's somebody bigger and more powerful than me. My mental health. When I was in active addiction, my mental health was at a 0, bro. I needed help, right? And then my physical health, I was getting fat. I was sloppy. I didn't care about my teeth. Dude, I'm still 15 years later trying to fix my teeth from my opioid addiction, right? So home health, then your community. I posted a video this morning about your community, man, about how important the people that you hang out with are, right? And if you look at it, and if these people are promoting and helping you fuel your drug addiction, you're on the wrong crowd. But think about how you got sober, Chris, is you put yourself around better people that would help you stay sober, people that held you accountable and didn't co-sign your crap, right? And then a purpose. Most times people have 0 purpose. They get up in the morning, they chase the dope. Their only purpose is to get high and to stay healthy, right? Stay well is what they call it. So when you start breaking it down, those are the barriers for us in recovery that we have to overcome to get somebody off the streets or out of their situation to help them start healing. Is we have to fix home, health, community, purpose. There's got to be something bigger than them on the other side of it, or they're never going to change. Yeah. So that's that's my soapbox on that.
So typically you start the game on home base. So, but is that where you're going to first broach trying to be helpful to anybody on the street? What are you leaning on first to try and repair to get any kind of, motion in the right direction?
Yeah, here's the problem we have in Arizona is I would say 99.9% of the people are on fentanyl. I have to get you to detox off fentanyl before you can do anything. Because as soon as you start going hours without it, your body starts attacking you. It goes in withdrawals. Yeah. It starts hurting. And so that's the first step is I got to overcome that mental, physical side of, hey, we can get through the withdrawals. It's going to be 7 days of hell. But on the other side of that, there's freedom. And so that's the biggest hurdle that I think that we have here is getting them to a detox that will really medically treat them.
Yeah, and let's talk about briefly, you've been through withdrawal yourself, yeah? Going back 15 years?
7 days, bro.
Yeah, really bad. So how much worse is the withdrawal from fentanyl versus the withdrawal that you went through when you were taking prescription opiates?
Exponential. Totally different. And mine was absolute hell. Like when I talk about it, dude, it was the hardest thing, shitting yourself, defecating on your peeing in yourself, restless leg, my elbow felt like it was going to fall, like a horrible flu, dude. Yeah. Now these people are detoxing on the streets or they're detoxing in jail. So there's no comfort to it. And so that's the difference is we got to get them into a place where they can give them comfort meds to get through the process. It's still not going to be comfortable, but there are meds out there that will help them not throw up all over the place, that will help them with the dizziness, right? Just same medication we would take at home, but at least they now have a bed to do it in, a safe spot to do it in.
The other thing is the onset of the withdrawal, no? Isn't it? It's a lot faster that if you, with fentanyl, and I could be wrong, that's why I'm, curious, that you can go into withdrawal within hours of not having it versus you might have been able to make it a day, maybe a day and some change before you might have started hitting withdrawal symptoms off of, prescription meds.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about the psychological warfare that these folks face is they're hitting the tray. So to use fentanyl, most of it's called Fetty powder or a pill. They get a piece of tinfoil, 4x4 piece. They hold it. They put the pills or they put the powder on top of it. They introduce a heat source underneath it. They have a straw hanging out of their mouth and they suck up the smoke. So that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. As they're hitting that tray, they're already thinking about where's my next pill coming from. Like that's the psychological warfare that these folks are going through, dude. It's chaos because they're never at peace, dude. I know when I took a pill in my addiction, I was like, oh, I could breathe. I could relax. I could calm down. Now I might have taken another pill right away because I wasn't as calm, but I was never thinking about, hey, dude, in 4 hours, I'm going to start feeling sick. I'm gonna start feeling like my backbone's gonna break, or my eyes twitching, or my teeth are starting to, because my teeth are rotting. I'm gonna start feeling that. So, and that's what happens is already like psychologically thinking about how am I gonna get high again? Where am I gonna get it? Who am I gonna rob? How am I gonna steal? What am I gonna do? And it's just like, dude, it's chaos, man.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no peace.
And that's what you were going into it for initially.
Yes,
you were looking for that piece and you got it initially, right? Yeah, it's so difficult. So the resources on the ground, there's not so many places that you're able to get them into a detox, number one. And then of course there's the normal challenge that all families are going through everywhere, which is how do I get them to go?
Yeah. The cost of, do you remember back in the day, you could read that mystery novel, and if you wanted to go to the top of the hill, you had to turn to page 15. Or if you wanted to go on the adventure in the jungle, you had to go to page 10.
Choose your own adventure, sure.
Choose your own adventure. Thank you. It feels like that in recovery. At least here. It feels like these folks have to choose their own adventure because if they're not on the right... So if you're on methamphetamines, you can't go to detox in Arizona. They don't take you. So good luck. Go on the streets and you're going to just detox on your own. Only if you're on fentanyl or alcohol will they take you in and put you in a detox center.
Okay.
So,
but they're taking you in if you are on fentanyl.
They'll take you in, right? But a lot of places will only pay for 3 days of your detox. And then after 3 days, they're like, hey, I'm sorry, we can't pay anymore. Your insurance has cut you off. So we're going to go put you right back on the streets. And that's the problem. There's no next level of care, okay? Because you haven't gone through your 7 days of detox, so most rehabs don't want to take you because you're still in day 3. You're in the middle of the detox. You're still shitting yourself. You're still throwing up all over the place, and they can't take you because now you're a threat to their clients. Because their clients are like, oh my gosh, that guy's withdrawing. I remember that. Oh, I'm going to go use, and it triggers them, right? So it starts this whole compound effect, and so that's one of the issues that we have as insurance companies don't pay long enough. Or families don't want to pay anymore, man. The families have done this 365 times. They're like, I'm tired of paying. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm cut off. And so we're always bridging that gap of who's going to pay, how long can they stay, which location will take them for free, who will scholarship them. You know what I mean? Because with fentanyl, I've seen people that have been in a detox and recovery 30 times. Actually intakes and have been in this facility 30 times. That's a lot of times, dude, and still haven't gotten it.
Yeah. Is it because of the physical? I mean, most of the time, especially with people that I've worked with opiate-wise, it's even after you survive withdrawal, if you make it the 6, 7, 8 days, the psychological is just just a very simple idea of it'd be nice to have a pill though. And boom, I got to get out of here.
That's exactly right. Or someone in there has a pill that was in their wallet. They didn't get searched, or it was in their shoe and they used together. Yeah. Oh, that's the story. Or I got this. Dude, I'm 7 days clean. I've never felt this good. I've got this. I can do it. And then they go right back into that environment that's been making them sick. And then how long can you stay sober on the streets?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
So I know that you being out there, you see kind of like the same cast of characters a little bit. Yeah. Like you have some people that are regulars, or are you seeing people like, is it more like there he is and now he's gone?
It's more that, man, believe it or not. I mean, I have a few regulars, but most of my regulars have now passed. They're dead, or they made it out.
And so let's talk about the making it out.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. We always talk about there's 3 ways to get out of it, right? Get locked up, sober up, or covered up. Those are the 3. I mean, it's crazy. And I didn't believe that when I first heard it, but I'm like, dude, there's some truth to that. You're either going to jail and getting sober, or you're dying.
Yeah, and let me just interject this here too for any families. I mean, obviously our topic is fentanyl heavy, and I mean, it's the most challenging thing that I think we're facing and have faced. But the same is true for alcohol. The same is true for any substance that anybody is addicted to. It's like that phrase comes from 12-step community. Initially, AA meetings. It was like you're either getting locked up. It's jails, institutions, and death. That was an alcohol-based quote.
Yes.
So it's the same thing for fentanyl. It's just more extreme. It's more, pathway is it's a lot more, it's shorter, faster.
Do you remember back in the day, 80s, when the police departments came out with the pictures of people that went through active addiction from a day 1 arrest to maybe 30-day arrest to a year arrest? Do you remember those?
Yeah, where
they did like a timeline.
Kind of improved or didn't improve, where they had multiple mugshots.
Multiple mugs going from this beautiful woman to just what the heck happened?
Right.
So that was like a meth scare. That's what they'd say. Hey, you're on meth, you're gonna lose your teeth and all that. I'm seeing it on fentanyl so much quicker. Like honestly, I'll see somebody today, I'll see him in 2 weeks, almost unrecognizable. And that's the truth of it, where it takes you, like you lose all inhibition. And the wounds start popping up, the homelessness starts popping up, and it's just, I don't know if it's the lifestyle, I don't know if it's the drug, I don't know what it is, but I've never seen someone lose so much so quick.
I mean, I can't imagine. The hopelessness and despair has to be so heavy, so fast, that you don't see a way out of this worse than any other thing. Even if you aspire, there's no kind of like, and again, I'm speculating because I've never been on fentanyl, but I have been addicted, and I know what hopelessness and despair feels like. But there's a shred of something where in the back of your head, that there is an out. You know what I mean? Like there is an out. I don't think it's going to happen for me. I don't think that I can make it, and you have all that kind of stuff. I wonder if you are in the depths of your fentanyl addiction, it's like, I'm not getting out.
Yeah, because you do see a lot of death. There's a lot of overdose. But you asked a very potent question a second ago. You said, okay, what about the success?
Yeah.
And crazy enough is we are seeing success. Now, we're not seeing it at the success of the same amount as they're losing their lives, because we're seeing a lot of death. But those ones that we're getting and that are living and successful are doing it. Right? I mean, I probably have, since I've been doing that, probably 20, 30 people that I still contact. Matter of fact, this morning, guys, like, hey, Brock, I'm up in Show Low, Arizona. I'm 7 months clean. And if I showed you the picture of him, the video of him, you would be like, there's no way this dude's clean. He was on the side of the street fumbling, like he was dancing around. Like I'm like, this guy is on the verge of overdose. And he got up to a good treatment center, and he's now coaching, he's teaching, he's just doing a great job, right? And he hit me up and he's like, hey, dude, thanks for that. Thank you for talking to me and spending the time on the streets. So we're getting some of those. Of course, you know how it is, man. You want everybody to recover. You want everybody to be saved. You want everybody to see the freedom that you get when you're sober.
Yeah.
But we are getting people out of these situations. I have one girl, her name's Summer, phenomenal. I literally saw her for about a year and a half. The last time I saw her, she was in the middle of the road. I swear I thought she had been attacked. I thought something had happened. Her clothes, like half her clothes were on. She's stumbling in the middle of the road. It almost looked like an alcohol, fentanyl intoxication. I couldn't tell. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so I got to pull her out of the road. So I pulled up, grabbed her, said, hey, what is going on? I'm looking at her. I know she has daughters. It's just a cool people, but you want to talk about in the grips of addiction, brother. And she just hit her year mark, right? The thing is, we may have helped her take those steps to get somewhere, but then you know how it is. You have to do the work.
Of course.
You got to go to work. You got to pay your dues. You got to show up. You got to put in. And dude, I'm telling you, recovery is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier to stay sober than to get sober, as they say.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but you helping her get sober is instrumental. Without you, she doesn't get sober. She is still stuck in where she was. So, I think and that's obviously what we do with families all the time. It's how do you help your loved one get sober? And so from a practical perspective, right? And I'm just kind of riffing, but if you have video, right, of that particular individual or any of the individuals, do you think it might go a long way, considering what we just said, and you talking about third base with purpose, to when you're having these conversations, because you're having conversations with everybody on the street. I mean, the Fentanyl Project, like that's what you're showing you, like these conversations that you're having with people that are on fentanyl or, in search of fentanyl, right? Like in various different, windows of time, but they're in their active addiction, they're on the street. Would it be helpful to lead with maybe a FaceTime recorded message from someone that it would be them now saying, hey, like watch this video where I was exactly where you were just 7 months ago. And then you show them the video of where they were at. And now you show, and then a message comes back and then it's them talking to them and saying, here's what I did to get out of it. Do you think that might be helpful?
Totally. That would actually be cool.
Okay. So if you were to get someone that was on the street and they were to say, okay, Brock, and they meant it. You're like, I'm serious. I'm ready I'll do whatever you want me to do. Where do I go? What do I do? What do you do next?
Are you asking me what we do?
Yeah.
Man, so that's a really good, I love what you said. A lot of times I don't have a pre-recorded video to show them, but I get them on a FaceTime call with some of my dudes that have been there.
Okay.
So like that gives them some hope. I did that a couple of days ago. I have a buddy, Colin Morrison, one of my best friends. He lives in California. He wrote for Meta Militia, really cool guy. And I put him on the phone a lot of times to people because he's such a well-spoken guy and can talk the language, right?
Yeah.
And just give these people, you just need some hope, brother.
Yeah.
You just need a little bit. And then what we have to do is we have to connect them with the right facility, the right people. And in Arizona, we have a few of those if their beds are open, right? Because they get inundated with people. And so we got to get them at the right time where they have a bed. What we do, we give them all the numbers. We make the phone calls, at least the initial phone call, and say, hey, here, we make that connection. And then you got to do the work, brother, because I can't do anything else for you. And so that's one thing we don't do is we advocate, but we don't get too involved into where we're like, the trauma falls back on us, right?
Of course.
Like if you don't go, it's on me. It's like, no, here you go, brother. I'm giving you the greatest opportunity. I'm giving you a foot into the door. Now you got to step. So, yeah.
You're facilitating them walking through the door, which that's all an intervention is.
That's it, brother.
But going back to the idea of there's a difference between getting sober and staying sober. No one in the history of sobriety has ever stayed sober without first getting sober.
Mm.
And when someone's in active addiction, the getting sober part is what seemingly impossible. And that's where the idea of they have to hit bottom, they have to want it, they have to be ready. None of that applies to someone who's in the deepest pit of addiction that they could possibly be in, you know? Like imagine this person is so deep in a hole in the ground that they can't even see the light at the top. And they know they're in a hole. And occasionally they come to and they go, I don't want to be in this hole anymore. And then they look up. Now what? How am I supposed to get out of here? And so if there isn't a resource right then and there in that moment, somebody that's shouting down to go, hey, you want to come out of the hole? Let me drop down a rope. You want a rope? That's the moment. Without that moment, there is no shot. They need that resource. That's the work that you're doing, Brock.
Hope so, man.
What do you mean? What? Hope so. That's what you're
You know
doing.
what I mean?
That's what you're out there doing. You've got people off the streets and you've gotten them into the programs. Of course, the work is up to them. Of course, that has absolutely nothing to do with you. In the same way, it has absolutely nothing to do with any of the parents I work with, any of the families I work with. We're not responsible for the outcomes. We're responsible for the effort that we put in. But my focus is also on, okay, I want to be responsible for the effort. I also want to make sure that my effort is as, impactful and as focused as it can possibly be. What's the most comprehensive effort that I can make, right? So if I'm having this conversation with someone, if I can get them anywhere near willing to do something different, if I can get them willing to go, okay, yeah, drop me the rope, then what's the next step once they hit the surface? Because once they hit the surface, we have to get them into a place, because here's what's the most baffling thing is they're going to go, it's scary up here. I want to go back in my hole.
For sure.
So we have to get them connected right away. And that's where, so what are those resources and what could you use if you were, so in this kind of context, if someone's listening to this, they go, okay, if you were talking to, the governor of Arizona, what do you need to help these people if you were to get them to that degree of motivation in that moment where they're like, yeah, I'm ready. What do you need?
So first step is a detox, beds. Second is I don't want to say I'm a huge fan of recovery. I think recovery works for some people, right? When I'm talking about a rehab. But they got to detox to where they can start thinking clearly enough to where that next step level of care. So first of all, you got to detox them. Second of all, you got to put them around the right people, right? You got to get them into a area, whether it's outpatient or inpatient, to where they feel like they're a part of the solution. For example, Chris, this is why that's why I do coaching. I left the recovery space. I used to own a recovery program myself. I stopped because I wanted to work with certain individuals like you, law enforcement, firefighters. If they're in full-blown active addiction and I take them for 30 days out of their job, they're done. They're probably fired. It's going to draw too much of attention. And so for me, not everybody needs that level of care. I can take you and say, hey, let's regroup, let's reboot, let's put you on a different trajectory. Let's change some of your negative habits. And so you start figuring out, but you have to have somebody there. And the answer to your question is you got to have a mentor. You got to have somebody in there that's guiding them and helping them in the direction that they need to go each step of the way. Right?
Yeah.
And so for us, detox is step one.
Yeah.
Step two, putting them in that next level of care, whether it's IOP or rehab.
Since you're out there, and I imagine that obviously it takes a toll on you, right? And we could talk about that, but like I imagine that you're thinking about these solutions all the time.
All the time.
Right. And so when you say we need detox, if you could wave a magic wand, what does that look like? Again, I'm asking you specifically because I'm not asking like some guy that, like a policymaker. I'm not asking someone who's like in college studying, like addiction and, how best to treat it. You're on the ground having conversations with hundreds of people who are in the throes of fentanyl addiction. And you have the experience of living in addiction yourself. You are in recovery today, sober. So from your perspective, you can wave a magic wand. What's the solution to start?
The solution is get them into a hospital situated detox to where they can have the medical intervention to where they're not miserable for 7 days, a full 7-day detox. Anything less than that is just throwing it down the drain, waste of money. Get them there. And then you need to get the support team, aftercare involved. And that's the problem. And it's not always family, but these folks need jobs. They need to feel important. So they need to have the new clothes, right? A pair of clothes that they can put on to go get a job. They need a place to put their belongings, place to shit, shower, and shave, right? And that's one of the problems we have is these folks are carrying around their livelihood. The reason they can't go get a job, or they say they can't get a job, is because they have no place to put their luggage. So we got to create some exigencies to help these folks. But for me, the first step is simply detox. Just get these guys in an environment of health. And then you got to have the right people around them, man. I can't tell you how many detox I've gone into. And it's like, bro, I wouldn't send my worst enemy here. This is just a shit show, dude. Like, there's nobody happy in this room. Everybody's pissed off. Like, shit, I want to get out of here as quick as possible. So I think that's a big thing is you got to have the right people around them and in support. And then you got to help them stay away from it. The biggest issue we have here is we get them healthy. Then we put them right back in the environment that made them sick.
Yeah.
Right back into it. That could be their home, right? But we're putting them right back into an unhealthy environment. We take a guy out of a home for 30 days. We heal him. He's like, great. Dude, I've never felt this good. I'm so happy. And then you put him at home with an angry loved one. Mm-hmm. Guess what, dude? I'm going right back to using.
Yeah. Especially when they feel they're responsible for this person's anger in a significant way. They have every right. At all. Yeah, they have every right to be as angry as they are. I am a POS and I deserve this and I should just get out of here. And if you go into the depths of those feelings, like, what do? I have to escape these feelings that I don't know how to manage. I don't know how to cope with. I don't know how to feel. I've been running from feeling for years.
So long, dude.
Well, the one guy that you mentioned that you had success, right? I mean, what's the difference? And it's sometimes again, it is the magic wand kind of idea, but he went away. He left. When you're talking about the environment, he went to a treatment program. He went someplace else, Yeah. And oftentimes where people land when they do find success, when they were in a really rough environment, is an entirely different environment with a completely different, a different community with different motivations and goals and aspirations and things that are a recovery community.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
So, I mean, I'm seeing a vision of something like sunshine detox. I think that, I heard someone say this along the way. I can't really recall who it was, but like going into something where I think they do it in Italy and maybe some other places in Europe where you're going and you're going to be on a farm. You're going to the purpose is going to be there that you're working on the land that you get to stay on with the people who are also, have detoxed and now are living in this place, and that it's going to be a 12 to 18 month commitment, And, I wonder if you drop that rope into that hole and it's like, I don't know if I want to come out of here. And you were to say, here's where we're going to bring you. And it's someplace where the environment is welcoming, it's nurturing, and you are going to be able to medically detox safely. And then you stay here and you're going to be amongst the community. And when, learn skills, get trained, so that when you leave here, you can then go get jobs, get housing, and have all of your bases covered. How's that sound,
it.
Brock? Did we just
Let's
we
create
solved
one,
it?
man.
Yeah, I mean that
try.
sounds like it's it.
Yeah, the problem is you're dealing with human beings that have emotions and they have traumas. And so we have a couple places that are long-term in Arizona that do really well if the people will stay, right? There's a 2-year commitment facility here for younger men. They bring them in. They do the same thing where they give them responsibilities. They have horses there. They have a community. They can go out and work and come back. And it's a great facility, but they like you said, man, they can't get heady. They can't get all of that headspace. Oh, I'm better than this. They're not paying me enough money. And they forgot where they were at. And I do think once we start feeling better, we forget the depths of our addiction. So
yeah. I remember talking to a friend of mine he was in rehab so many times. And then, like on the 8th, 9th time, he'd be in there and just so devastated with whatever it was that just happened. And then 36 hours, a Gatorade, a couple of push-ups, a cigarette later. And he's like, I should be running this place.
Oh my gosh. Yes. We heal quickly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's from an intervention perspective, what I can say on that, but it's a challenge that we would be facing, of course, with anybody that kind of, if you're talking about a fentanyl addiction, people that don't have family and don't have maybe the resources around them, from an intervention standpoint, when families get involved in the initial process of intervening and getting that person into that program, because they've also helped in the selection of that program and are working on a recovery journey together, that's what oftentimes creates the emotional leverage that's required for that person to continue in whatever program it was that they committed to when times get tough and they want to leave. Everybody wants to leave, of course. Any natural human beings, if you're in the hospital for anything, the moment you feel strong enough to pull this thing out of your arm, you want to get up out of the hospital bed and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go, right? And so nobody wants to be where they don't necessarily want to be. Like that's just 100% across the board. But when you're dealing with addiction and early recovery and how long it's going to take for the brain to heal and come back, which it can, it is very possible. Neuroplasticity is real. The brain can heal from addiction, but it requires separating from the substance and being in a healthy enough environment to allow that to occur for a long enough period of time for it to occur. And without the emotional leverage, it's tough to keep someone's butt in the seat, because their brain is still, it hasn't healed. It's still an impaired brain. 2 months in, 3 months in, 4 months in, 5 months in, 6 months in, it's still impaired and susceptible to the kind of thinking that, would just be mind-blowingly insane, considering where we've come from, to then go, yeah, but I just want to go. I just think this movie would be better if I had a pill. Are you out of your mind?
Totally.
Are you out of your mind? And of course, yeah, but that is exactly the kind of thought that precedes a potential full-blown relapse, like a head-first dive right back into the hole. Is this movie would be better, I think, if I just had one.
Sex would be better.
Yeah, how am I going to go on a date?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Totally.
Or, my date says that she would like me to try. Okay. And that's it, And so
That's it.
without having that ongoing, emotional leverage that's going to keep you from acting on thoughts like that, because those thoughts are going to come, And so anyway, from an intervention perspective, that's where the family really comes into play. And I'm making a presumption. It's not necessarily true, but like you said, it's like a lot of times I imagine families are at their wits' end and spent and so devastated and have likely reached the place in a very rapid period of time of apathy, of what are we, like, that there's nothing we can do, and they've just let go entirely, And so if you recover, that's great, but we're not involved. Is that what you've
100%? Because remember, I'm on the street, so most people we deal with are homeless.
Yeah.
So we don't do a ton. I mean, in my private coaching, I work with a lot of men, first responders. But when I'm doing the Fentanyl Project, totally different dynamic.
Right. And when you're talking to the people that are on the street homeless, do you ever ask them about their family?
All the time.
And what do you usually hear?
Zero communication. They've offended them. They've hurt them. They have no access to them.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
So much
there goes their community.
Yeah. So much of what I do, what I've learned along the way, as far as intervention goes, the reason why intervention works is because, it's my logo here. Why intervention? Recovery starts with family.
Yeah.
If I don't have the family in the mix, good luck. Then I'm left with, I'm going to share my experience with this guy and hope that he, thinks it's worthwhile to go ahead and do. But if I have the family, holy cow, we can get somebody into treatment in an hour. If I have the family, if I can coach the family on what to do and say differently, it's never hopeless. But if the family's out, it's like, what do you want me to do?
And these guys are, when I'm talking no family, they've offended their family. Their kids won't talk to them. Their exes won't talk to them. There's restraining orders. You're at a level of these people, they're on their own. And their recovery and their addiction is 100% on them. That's hard.
Yeah, that's really hard. And again, I can't see so what's your option then for a successful recovery in that circumstance looks like. They got to go someplace else entirely.
They got to change their whole team.
Yeah. They got to be lifted.
Yeah.
We airlift, send in the airlift and just pull them and get them someplace entirely different in a healthy environment with people with a whole different set of motivations and beliefs.
And believe it or not, that works.
Of course.
Right? Change their places, faces, things, whatever you want to call it, but they can't be familiar. They got to move.
Well, Brock, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day here. I know that you got work to do. Anything that I could have asked or should have asked that you wish that we would have covered before I let you go?
I think you did awesome, man. Thank you for your time and what you do, man. For reals.
I really appreciate you coming on. I remember when we had a conversation quite a while ago, one of the things that stuck with me that was so funny was just like you saying, I was that guy that was like sitting on the couch watching TV show Intervention, getting a high, looking at this guy going like, he's got a problem. This guy needs some help. That's the kind of, the thinking that we have, and that's just, one aspect of it, the mental side of it, as we touched on. But once you're physically gripped by this thing, it's just so challenging to get out of. So I really admire the work that you're doing. And keep it up, man. Keep it up.
Thank you,
raising
brother.
awareness.
Come out with me sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I go out to Arizona every once in a while. I'll definitely hit you up when I'm out there.
Appreciate you, man. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.